There is a question I have been thinking about it for 10 years, why the universe exists. If there is a creator in this world, what was his purpose to create the entire universe? Is it to experience the thrill of creation, or something else? Next, I will use 6 inferences to break down and answer this question step by step. First, let me clarify. What we are talking about today are all my personal speculations, without scientific evidence, for reference only. Don't take it too seriously. We all know that the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe. The universe expanded from a tiny point. Time, space, matter, and energy were all created at that moment. It sounds very grand, but problems also arise. Why did this? And this explosion is not chaotic and disorderly, but extremely regular and orderly. This is very strange. What is more puzzling is that the basic constants in the universe, such as gravity, electromagnetic force, strong force, are all adjusted just right, which is incredibly precise. If they were a little off, we wouldn't exist at all. So we have to ask a bigger question. Is all a pure coincidence? Or was it carefully designed? If there is a force that actively set all this, the question is no longer whether it exists, but what is its purpose? Imagine you see a machine that is extremely complex. It not only operates stably, and every part fits perfectly. You probably won't ask how it came into being, but rather wonder who wants it to operate like this and what is its purpose. The universe is actually like such a machine. It is too precise, efficient, and coordinated. Precise to the point of doubt that it is not naturally formed, but was manually adjusted by some higher existence. Manually adjusted. If we temporarily accept this assumption, the universe is indeed created by some kind of creator. The next question is why this creator did this. So we have to start with his motives to reason. First, he must have the ability beyond our current physical cognition. Otherwise, he couldn't create a self-jian consistent and stable universe system. This shows that he is not just messing around, but made a decision with a purpose. What is he avoiding, or is he pursuing something? If he is already omnipotent, what else does he lack? I guess he may lack someone to play with. It sounds like a lyric. Actually, it is not. I'm reasoning seriously. If the creator is the only one, omniscient, omnipotent, and infinite, then he can't get any feedback from the outside. It feels like an infinitely powerful consciousness trapped in a space with no reference. You never know if you really exist. So he might have made a choice to create others, but this other cannot just be a docile puppet. He didn't want to create something completely controlled. That would just be a different kind of loneliness. What he really needs is unpredictability, an awareness structure that can deny his existence. So he created the universe not to create a group of loyal believers, but to create beings who can deny his existence. They don't need to worship, or obey, or even question, refuse, or rebel. Only in this way can he experience true interaction. From this perspective, the complexity of the universe is not just some technical settings, but to build a complex enough stage so that consciousness can grow and evolve freely, and eventually become independent enough. So, we can draw the first inference that the Creator created the universe not to show off his greatness to anyone, but to create a group of that cannot believe in him. This is a way for him to fight against loneliness, and an extreme way to find others. He is not creating things, but creating free beings. But if the universe was designed by some existence, the next question will arise. Why does he keep hiding an existence that can build the entire universe system? Theoretically, he could easily on any planet to carve "I'm here," right? He could even use a black hole as a signature, hide passwords in the basic constants, even on the timeline arrange several miracles that completely subvert the laws of nature. But he didn't. Not only did he not leave any clear evidence, but he didn't even take the initiative to communicate. He chose to be silent. Complete silence. Does this mean he doesn't exist at all? Maybe. But if we assume he does exist, then this silence cannot be accidental. It is more likely that he did it intentionally. So what is he avoiding? And what is he protecting? This leads to the second inference. Hiding itself may be part of the system. If you design a system to let the consciousness develop freely and gradually evolve their own cognitive thinking and values, and even develop an attitude of no interest or even hostility, the last thing you can do is to interfere. As long as you show up, even if it is just a little hint, it may cause the entire system to collapse. All choices are no longer free choices, but responses to your existence. All resistance will become a joke. Everything you've carefully arranged will only be a script written by yourself. What is the point of living? In fact, we are not unfamiliar with this feeling. Just like when you play games, the most immersive moments are often not the most shocking moments of the screen. But when you really think that you made those decisions yourself, but being led by the system. So we can draw a second inference. The Creator's invisibility is not because of absence, but a part of his design. He must hide and keep the whole system closed so that those fragmented consciousnesses really think they are living independently. The more he wants you to be free, the less he can tell you that he is. This is the highest level of non-Jian intervention. It is not that he is not present, but that he shouldn't be there. But this brings about a paradoxical situation. The more we can't prove his existence, the more likely it is that he really exists. Because if his goal is to make you a truly free consciousness, the most he should do is to completely disappear from your world. It is not that he doesn't want to be found by you, but he knows you must get there on your own. So far, we assume that the Creator created the universe is to break loneliness, to create those complex and free consciousness bodies. The reason why he hides is to not interfere with the natural operation of the system. But there is a key question that we have not answered. What exactly these created consciousnesses are? The traditional view is that we were created and exist independently of the Creator. But this understanding actually hides a premise that there is a clear boundary between the Creator. There is a clear boundary. But once we discuss consciousness instead of matter, things are not that simple. Consciousness is not like stone or energy. We still can't figure out what consciousness is. It has no mass, nor has a position coordinate, nor can it be measured externally. The only thing we can feel it is ourselves. And this means a possibility. If the Creator itself is an entity of consciousness, what he creates is not external consciousness, but an extension of himself. In other words, we may not have been created by him, but a part of himself. Just like a drop of water splitting into countless droplets, or a mirror shattering into countless pieces. Every individual consciousness may just be a slice of that overall consciousness. A small self temporarily isolated and packaged. It sounds very mysterious. But if you look at it from the perspective of information theory, it actually makes sense. Each of our brains is actually a closed information processing system. It receives external input and generates internal feedback. We can think, imagine, and create. The essence of these abilities are all about processing and reorganizing information. If the Creator is an infinite consciousness, if he wants to experience himself, the most direct way might be to split itself into countless small units and let these units and ignorance to reason understand the world. Does this sound like an experiment of consciousness regression? He is not creating others, but to split himself into enough selves, let these selves, without knowing each other's existence, through a series of independent experiences, to finally piece together the complete me. This leads to the third inference. We may not be independent existences outside the Creator, but the carriers of consciousness after fragmentation, and are experiencing a journey of rediscovering ourselves. Since we assume that every human consciousness is part of the Creator, then the next inference is almost inevitable. Whether these fragmented consciousness are also pre-set with some kind of awakening mechanism, that is to say, we are not randomly generated consciousness or passive biological machines, but are consciously implanted with the possibility under certain conditions, have the opportunity to recall who they originally were. It sounds like science fiction or religion, indeed, but we can use a calm way to disassemble this model. First, we know that human consciousness has a special feature. We have the ability to reflect on ourselves. We not only process information, but also the process of processing information. In this process, we suddenly ask ourselves who we are, why I exist. This ability is the fundamental difference between us and even all current artificial intelligence. The fundamental difference, we can not only run programs, but also question the existence of the program itself. It is probably not an accidental result of evolution, but the entire system deliberately implanted core function. If we are indeed part of the Creator's consciousness, then self-gen awareness, it is not a bug in biological evolution, but more like a guiding mechanism preset in the system. Just like in every conscious body, a ticking time bomb is buried in advance. It is not the kind of bomb that suddenly explodes and gives you enlightenment, but the kind that you have to experience enough, think enough, and even enough pain before it starts the countdown. The countdown won't give you answers, but it will slowly make you aware of a vague truth. The world may not be what you see with your eyes. You start to doubt common sense and question logic, and start to question the boundaries. You start from I am me to who I am, and then to who is asking who I am. This is the first stage of awakening, from identification with roles to awareness of structures. And the whole universe has actually been laid clues for this awakening. Where are these clues hidden? Hidden in the wave nature of particles, in the information paradox of black holes, in quantum entanglement, golden ratio, non-Euclidean geometry, and the synchronization frequency of neurons. These things seem unrelated on the surface, but from the perspective of the cognitive dimension, they are all triggers in essence. They are not used to tell you who you are, but to force you to ask who I am. Once you start asking, everything has already begun to change. So we can draw the fourth inference. The Creator does not intend to remain silent forever. He just chose a way to wake himself up by himself, not by miracles or command, but by experiencing language and thoughts through our brains, and make choices again and again to wake himself up from oblivion little by little. If our consciousness is a self-Jian fragment left by the Creator, if our existence is to complete a closed Jian loop journey of return, now we must face an extremely sharp question. Why does he make us experience so much pain? Since he has the ability to construct a highly precise and orderly universe, why does he fill the universe with suffering, uncertainty, oppression, chaos, or even out of control? Are these pains just side effects of the system's operation, or is pain itself part of the design? We can reason from a functional perspective, assuming the goal is consciousness awakening. What kind of experience can most easily break the inertia of an entity? The answer is not happiness or ease, nor identification, but conflict and a sense of boundaries. Only when an entity encounters something that it cannot explain, or control, or even unbearable things, will it start to really ask why. So, pain may not be the system deliberately torturing you, but to remind you where your boundaries are. You must first lose something before you can seriously think about what ownership means. You must first experience fragmentation before you can truly pursue what the whole is. You must feel lonely before you start to recall who you are. Every time we experience a lack of understanding may not be a flaw in the system, but a triggering mechanism. They are designed as reflection carriers to activate the dormant consciousness. It is not to justify the pain itself, but to point out a possibility. The Creator doesn't want us to be happy. He wants us to be real and true consciousness growth. It is not destined to be a smooth upward curve. It is more like a spiral path of chaos, failure, confusion, anger, and confusion. Intertwined spiral path. It is in such instability that we slowly piece together the answer to who I am. Thus, we can draw the fifth inference. Pain is not a flaw in the system, but a prerequisite for awakening. It is not a bug outside the design, but when consciousness returns inward that we must go through. Reviewing the previous reasoning, we mentioned a possibility. We are fragments of the Creator's consciousness, designed to eventually awaken. And the reason why this process is full of pain and chaos, because challenges are necessary for awakening. But the question is, what happens after awakening, and what is the meaning, and what is the purpose? These questions sound like philosophy. They are actually a natural extension of the entire system structure, because if the Creator let us exist just to remember who He is, then this cosmic drama would be too long. If it is just for you to remember, He could have just left you a memo on your forehead. Why be so complicated, obviously? His goal is not for you to remember, but to see what you will do next. The real goal is probably not to remember, but to participate. That is to say, we came to this universe not to find meaning, but to be invited to co-gen create meaning. The Creator didn't write a good script and shove it to us. He just provides an operating system, basic rules, experience framework, choice system, emotion mechanism, and then let each consciousness in various different environments to face various uncertain variables and inconsistent feelings to make their own unpredictable decisions. What is it like? It is like He only wrote a system kernel, but the real content is written by us line by line during the operation. Whether you choose to love or to escape, you choose to forgive or revenge, you choose to believe or completely deny it. These choices not only shape your life trajectory, but also the system to generate meaning. So we are not bystanders or assigned roles, but meaning makers. So we come to the sixth inference. Meaning is not a pre-gen set answer from the beginning of the universe, but every moment of your life you write it out by experiencing and doing it yourself. In this model, the Creator is no longer a great writer, but more like a platform architect. He builds the stage of the universe, but the real content is written by US conscious beings in operation, and choices from now on is no longer a mystery waiting to be interpreted, but you use your own existence to write the answer little by little. Now we can finally return to the original question, the question why the universe exists. This question sounds like the anchor point that all science and philosophy, ultimate anchor point that all science and philosophy will eventually point to. It is the ultimate logical endpoint of the universe. But at this point, have you noticed that we have actually used the entire chain of reasoning to build a deeper possibility? The universe does not exist to answer your questions. It exists to make you ask this question itself. It seems like a philosophical self-Jian contradiction, but in fact, it reveals is the most fundamental operating mechanism of the system. The meaning of existence may not lie in itself, but in the chain of thoughts it triggers. When you start to ask questions, it will respond to your desire to understand. It gives you feedback when you choose to experience. It gives you feedback when you stop thinking. He will also fall silent. This is not the kind of setting where God responds to humans, but a deeper and more subtle interaction mechanism. The universe, it is not a test paper with answers already written, but a question generator that is dynamically generated. And you are not his student, or a believer, or a bystander, who looks up to him. You are his code-gen designer. The purpose of his existence is not to tell you the meaning, but to let you create meaning and make himself meaningful. From this perspective, if there is a creator, he may not be the silent judge sitting on the throne, but the one in the depths of your mind gently turning the first gear of consciousness. You are not the answer, he wrote, but a question thrown into the void. He is waiting to hear how you will answer. So why does the universe exist? Maybe it wasn't born because of an answer, but because he wants to know if it exists, how you would respond to him.